Well, now I want to turn to Steve Sherrill. Steve is not going to talk about what do you want to talk about tonight. Steve is going to talk about battery power. And he's going to be doing this for a few weeks because we had some people request that he do this because they want to find out about battery power and how can you do it simply? I mean, don't get it too complicated for me. Just can you tell me how I can kind of get started and dip my toe in that water? And Steve has graciously decided he's going to do that. One of the things that we're pleased about, and this comes up in 2 weeks, is a company called LocoFi, LOCO, capital FI, is going to be on one of the guests that Steve has on the 18th of October, 2 weeks from now. And the company is offering, on top of everything else that they do, they're going to offer an additional 15% off for 2 days. The day they're on the show, the 18th, and the next day, the 19th. And there's a special code that you would have to use on those, only on those 2 days, that's shown here on this slide, in order to order and get a 15% discount on top of the other discounts that they're already offering to the general public. They've been on the show before. They've changed and added some features to their LocoFi. And from my understanding, it would be perfect to be incorporated into a battery power kind of operation. So I appreciate the company coming on the show. If there are other companies out there that would like to come on the show while Steve is doing this and be one of his guests, please let Steve know or let me know so that we can get you scheduled. And we would hope that you would do something special like LocoFi has done to try to encourage people to really consider battery power. Because while I don't use it myself, Steve is forcing me to really take a hard look at it. So Steve, I will turn this over to you now.
Thank you very much, Jim. Looks like I'm gonna be around for a while now. So I actually have a little schedule that I'm going to tell you about. Tonight, we're going to just review some stuff and talk about batteries and battery chargers. Then on the 11th, I'm going to do an RC car build, and I'm going to show you what you can do really inexpensively and still get a basic knowledge of the RC car as we convert that into an HO diesel. And the 18th, of course, we have LocoFi. And then on the 25th, I've got Bob Gelmacher, who is going to make and convert what comes in the RC cars is this. He's going to convert it to this with the guts that are inside and adding just a couple of other items. He's going to 3D print the case, and we're going to talk about that. That gives you a more familiar feel. As model railroaders, we're used to turning knobs and flipping switches, you know. So if we had to pull a trigger, those days are gone for us probably. So tonight, I want to talk about and review what we did some last week. I actually went to a train show, and I said last week I was going to go to a train show and buy a locomotive that I was going to convert. Now, with the RC car, and I'll be doing that next week. So I went to the train show, and I got some items for $10. Here's one. I actually got 4 items. I'm sorry. I got carried away a little bit. And here's a 00 gauge that I'd never seen before, Hornby. All these items run. And of course, I had to get a streetcar. Now, you know why I got the streetcar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, was a streetcar man. So is Martin. So this is in honor of those guys, a PCC. So these are older models, probably at least 30 years old. They were in the box and they all run really good. So those conversions will come about next week. Now I want to talk about batteries. And I will ask anybody who has any input on batteries, experience, please comment, okay? We're dealing with batteries that can be dangerous. They can cause fires if you don't, use them correctly and are very careful. All right. The main problem you have with the batteries is crossing polarity and leaving them hooked up in your locomotives. So let me turn over here. So I'm just going to show you a couple of batteries that I have out here. Here's my battery charger. This is the one I use. It's a little IMAX. They don't make this anymore unless it has a power input. Everything else looks the same, but it has a power input. This is self-contained here. You plug this directly into the wall. So, and what you get on this is you can do, to see where it says LiPo battery, you can put a battery that's LiPo. You can put nickel metal. You can put NiCad, and you can charge all those up. Now, if the battery is a 9-volt battery, you can adjust to 9 volts. That's just the current input. Get back here. Okay, so this one right now is set for 3.7 volts, which are these little guys right here. And this is what we'll be using for the RC cars, because the boards that make them go will only handle 3.7 volts. So this is a type of charger that we have, and you plug it in, and usually they come with different pieces that allow you to have different plug-ins, and they come right at the end. And this particular one, I've modified so it goes into certain ends that look like this. Whoop, where are we? There we are. And so I have little pointed ends that go. Now, one of the batteries that I like to use that has a lot of milliamps, remember? Voltage makes it go, milliamps makes it go longer. All right. So this battery has 900 milliamps, whereas the other battery I showed you only has 300. And then we have this is a battery that comes in the race car, the cars, the RC cars it comes with a battery. This is a NiCad. It also comes with its own little wall charger that you plug in, and it flashes a red light until it's fully charged, and then it stays solid red, and you know that you're finished and you take it out. The other kind of battery requires balancing. It's a 2-cell. And so what you do is you put this in the end of your charger where it fits, and you have this will go up to 4 cells, and that's a pretty good sized battery. Those would be the ones like in G scale. There might be 4 6-volt, cells, and you balance them like that, and that means each one of your cells is going to be 100% charged to the full capacity. And so I just want to, re-say again, be careful with these batteries. Crossing polarity seems to be the biggest problem with these batteries. So the race car we're going to be using is this. Okay. Now, when you take it apart, you're gonna have 27 little bolts to take apart. And you're gonna take it all apart and you're gonna be, it's going to expose the receiver, which looks kind of like this. This is one of them. It'd be a little bit bigger than this. This is off a different car. But you also get some extra parts that you can use. Things like little motors with gears on the end. Now, here's two different size motors that came out of this car. Again, these are all things you might be able to use in the future doing something. So don't discard these parts. And it's also got a lighting circuit in it. And what I do is I take all that stuff out, put them back together, take this to a train show and give it to a kid standing around, you know, it looks like he's bored. So,
Steve, how much does the car kit cost?
I'm afraid to tell you, after seeing the signal system, $15. It's a complete car.
So
Okay,
let me understand this.
okay,
Are you telling me that I can get a diesel on battery power for $15?
yes. Yes, I am.
Okay,
You have to realize this is like buying a Yugo. It's not a Mercedes. This is very, very basic stuff. If you had a really small layout, or you want to use this as some kind of a locomotive that you want to test your track. You know, you're hand laying some track, you come to a turnout, you want to see if it's, you know, in the right gauge, if it works, if it throws good. Use this. You're not going to wire it up for, you know, X number of weeks probably. And this will certainly give you the opportunity to see how it will run. I've got 6 or 7 of these things on here, and they all run good. Now I only run three car trains, and I've got a 3% grade. Some of these locomotives are geared different, so you have to really watch your speed with some of these. Some of these are the old style, run 150 miles an hour, but once you know, put smaller batteries in with less voltage, you can control some of that. I can make them just crawl, and I'm going to show you that next week. Like I say, I've got one I took from the train show. It's a Yugoslavian engine, and I've already kind of modified it so it looks like an ON30 engine. I actually did one. This is the same one I'm going to show. Are we getting that? No, I don't get it huge, yeah.
no,
I can't see it. So can you see it?
no,
It's
move
a
it
little-
move it over some, there.
Okay. And so that is an ON30 modified. I put a cab on, lights, made a stack, put the air there you go.
Yep,
The air tank, and it's all self-contained. You know, I charge it out of a port in the front. This is not an RC car conversion. This was a Del tank conversion, but I've got some of those. The RC car will have a battery car, and that battery car will probably be, well, it will be a Carroll County Scenics 5-board gun. I'm going to put it in, and all the components go in that, the board, the on-off switch, and so you're going to see a pretty nice conversion. And so that's what's on for next week.
so if I want to order one of those car kits, what do I order?
Well, I go on eBay and I look for one like a 132nd, 2.4 gigahertz. Right now they're $25, but the guy said make an offer, so I offered him $15 and got 3 of them. So you know, it's everything's negotiable.
Well, if
as far
I
as
go, let's say I go into a Hobby Lobby or something like that downtown, what do I try to buy?
you try to buy a ticket to get out of there because you're not going to get it for that price.
Okay,
You know, I mean, they're just not going to do it. eBay has the lowest prices for this. And usually you want to buy everything that you don't have to pay postage. So I got these 3 for $45 and didn't have to pay any postage at all. And they came all at one time.
Jim, this
Now,
is Bob Geldmacher. I went into a Hobbytown USA to the area where they have all the remote control things, and I started asking the salesman about receivers and things like that, and you can push that cost up to $100 without even a blink. So what Steve is talking about with the RC cars is by far the cheapest way to go. And
Yeah.
a good source could very well be a yard sale where, you know, maybe a family or kids have outgrown using it and they want to get rid of it.
and
Bob,
these are 1/32 scale cars, is that right?
well, yeah, those are ones that I can lay my hands on that look exactly like these. They don't
Okay.
make, evidently I bought so many that they don't have them anymore. And so the next size up was $25 more. I will say one thing for the company that I got this from on eBay, I got one and it didn't work. And I put on eBay, hey, this thing didn't work. The guy sent me another one without any charge, replaced it. So, you know, I thought that was very nice. They could have bought it and, you know, said the heck with me. But I know it. Keith Stamper, are you on here?
Yeah, I am, Steve. It's Keith. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Keith. Look, I know you have some conversion engines with battery. Could you comment on a system you're using? Yes. Yeah, 2699.
Okay, my system is a lot different to this, guys. I'm using the CVP Airwire system. For anybody that might be interested in the latest railroad model Craftsman, I have a full 6-page article on how to convert a locomotive to power on board.
Whoa.
Go out and buy your RMC. This is
Wow.
mine's a little different. I'm running the CVP Airwire system. I'm using DCC Dakota, Tsunami 2200s, and you know, it's very different to what you're offering here, Steve, because anybody wanting to convert a locomotive has to buy, besides the Dakota, they've got to buy the CVP Airwire system, and that's very expensive.
Yes, but
Let me qualify very expensive. You're looking at $150 for the radio receiver, and you've also got to buy the little reed switch circuit board, which is about $20, and then of course a battery. And I'm buying batteries right now from our friend in New Jersey. You know who I'm talking about? Old Iron Designs, Jeff Ringley.
yeah,
I bought from him. But I've been in this since 2014. I've been doing my whole layout's battery powered. There's no wiring under my layout, and so you know it's very different to this. What you've come up with here is a great idea for somebody wanting to get into battery power at a low cost solution and get going. My solution. We're going back to the Yugo and the Mercedes Benz. I'm already driving the Lamborghini. not to be a jerk here and act like a smarty pants. When I got into this, you know, I'm an ON3 modeler, and I model like Bill and Mary used to do. I model Colorado and Southern, so my logo is all brass, and I went ahead and put this stuff in.
yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty much my comment.
You have a different situation there. You are powering a lot of weight, and weight takes power. And then I know you have operating sessions, so you need, probably 3 or 4 hours guaranteed that you're going to get an operation out of a locomotive. I'm getting over an hour out of what I'm doing, and I'm very basic. This is just an introduction here, folks. You know, you can get and build a layout with this if you want, but it doesn't have sound. It's got its limitations. Once you start putting a lot of lights and things like that, you're going to take runtime away. It's not going to allow you to run heavy locomotives. You know, it's very, very basic. This is the entrance. You know, when you go Loco 5 next week, or 2 weeks rather, you're going to see another grade, a step up, you know, where they offer things like steam sound and operating on a phone and this kind of thing. These are all options that are available to you. You know, many of us have gone through DCC power, then DCC power. This is a new way of operating your equipment. I certainly, you know, Keith, have you run into any problems with batteries as far as, well, any problems at all? I mean, crossing polarity seems to be the biggest problem that I've encountered. But if you do it, you know, when you're charging in the charger, you can't even hook it up. It'll automatically say, you know, wrong polarity. So a good charger will do that and give you that protection. So, you know, these things are nothing to fool around with.
Steve, I'm using the same charger as you.
Are you?
Yeah, oh yeah, I have the exact same charger. As I say, if you look at the RMC article I've just written, there's a picture of that charger in the magazine. What I've found is this: I converted my first Loco in 2014, and I use 800 milliamp hour batteries that I used to get them from Tenergy through Pete Steinmetz.
Yeah.
And as I said, I buy them through Jeff Ringley, though. Anyway, we have one of the things I want to make here, a point I make here is the batteries I use have a control circuit board on them.
Right.
They don't allow you to overcharge them or over discharge them. So in other words, I was running a train this afternoon, and my Locos will run for about 4 hours on a charge. When we have an op session here, the guys run the wheels off the trains, and they run pretty heavy trains too. And we get about 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I've got my charge plug inside the water hatch. So I pull my engines up alongside my roundhouse, and then I charge them one at a time, and then I put them back in the roundhouse. It's absolutely critical. It's like a car. You got to maintain the battery. If you don't maintain the battery,
Yes.
like let it sit for 6 months, you'll find that charger will not charge the battery. It'll give you an error message. And then you have to fool around and change the settings on the charger and try and bump it to get it to charge, which is a little bit scary. I don't like to do things like that. So I regularly recharge all my locomotives on a periodic basis, whether I run them or not.
Yes. I know, you know, these cell phone batteries that I've got, they've been taken out of cell phones, obviously. And that when you go to charge them now for me to use them, they say low voltage. And the process of bumping them up is you have to be very careful. Very careful.
If you switch the charger from LiPo to nickel hydrate, you can actually charge them for about a minute, and then you switch them back to LiPo, and that'll kind of shock the battery back to life. But
Yeah.
you got to be careful with that. Do not leave them unattended. You're really asking for a big.
What I do is I use 10 increments at a time until I can get it up to almost 2 volts. All these batteries have a point where they will not charge anymore. You know, you get nothing. And most of them are 2 volts. So if you can shock them until you see 2 volts on the screen, you're in good shape.
When I charge my Locos, I'm not going to interrupt you again, but let me just finish this. When I charge my Locos, I set my charger to 0.4 amps, 400 milliamps or 0.4. And I charge, I normally take 2 hours to charge a locomotive.
Yeah.
I charge them very, very slowly. And as I said, my workshop and workbench area is adjacent to my layout room. So I'm in there all the time. I never, go out and walk the dog or something like that and leave this thing cooking away down here in my basement. So it's really critical that the battery is handled with great care. And one of the things guys need to remember is These guys that race these radio controlled cars, they charge them at very high current at very fast charge because they want to recharge a battery in 10, 20 minutes. And
Right.
that's dangerous. I would never do that down here.
Yeah, I put mine on too. So it's almost a trickle charge, you know?
Exactly. Trickle charge.
I mean, I've got batteries that I've had for almost 20 years. And you just really, you almost have to keep a log of which batteries and when you charged them. I found it's very important to keep those things charged. Very important.
Yeah, as I say, it's like a
Let-
car. You got to maintain the battery.
Let me ask a question, make sure I understand what I think I'm hearing. If I have a trolley, I'm not going to pull any cars or anything with it, it's just a single trolley.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm running that with DC. I don't have any sound on it or anything. I can just run it around my truck. Is the car for $15 the battery power that would get me started for that trolley?
Depends on how much voltage your motor would take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it depends on the current draw of the motor.
The motor that I have on it is, what is it? Magic Carpet.
I'm unfamiliar with that one. But you could take a 3.7 volt battery and touch it to your wheels and see how fast it turns them. And then you would know, hey, 3.7 will not get me where I want to go pretty fast. Remember, you're running brass equipment or heavy equipment, you know, whereas we're running diesels that, you know, weigh ounces. You probably weigh a pound or something for your stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to be. Now, if you go up to the next level, let's say Loco-Fi or MRC Genie, that kind of thing, you could run up to 16 volts. And then you would have no problem at all. So the system,
Well, the current becomes an issue when you get into O scale.
right, you have to be
I mean,
able-
if you're running a trolley and you've got two magic carpets under it and it's a heavy brass trolley, it's probably may pull an amp or more.
right.
And a lot of those things are only rated for an amp. Some are rated for 2. And I don't know about the RC cars.
Yeah, my
that's
Dakotas
cool.
are rated at 2 amps, obviously, because they're Tsunami 2200s.
Right.
But you know, you want to be very careful with when you install a battery system. It's really critical that you do a stall current measurement to see how much current the device
Right.
pulls before you install that. Because obviously, if the motor draws, you know, one amp or 1.5 amps, and the battery can't handle that, you're going to overheat the battery.
Yeah.
Hey, Keith, out of curiosity, have you looked at the Blue Nami?
And I was just going to tell you about that. I've just in my article in the RMC, the final chapter, the final paragraph, I had installed a Blue Nami for a friend. In fact, I just shipped the locomotive to him in Dallas. I did an SN3 locomotive. He asked me, and I put a 500 milliamp hour battery in it with a Blue Nami. I've just done. In fact, I shipped it off to him. He picked it up at the FedEx office this afternoon. So tomorrow I'm gonna walk him through how to put it all back together again. Because when I went down to Harrisburg in June, I shipped the battery to him ahead of time because shipping a battery from Canada to the United States is a problem.
Yeah.
As you guys probably know, I live up in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Keith, out of curiosity, what was your reaction to it? To
I like.
the
I
Blue
mean,
Nami? Because I mean, the cost structure is really interesting because you pay about $30 more for the Blue,
mhm.
you know, versus Tsunami 2 versus the Blue Nami. I think it's about a $30 difference.
Right.
But the app then is free on your phone. So you all of a sudden have this really limited cost to all of a sudden get wireless control.
Well, that's the beauty of it. There's two things to consider. Number one is that the Blue Nami it's slightly larger, but you don't need the large radio receiver, which I have to put into my locomotives. At the moment, I've got to install this $150 device, which I buy from CVP, which is the radio receiver plus then you've still also got to buy a throttle. My throttles are $170 a piece. So, you know, you're getting up there to $300 by the time you get done.
Mhm.
Anyway, the Blue Nami, you can use a cell phone. They've now released an Android version of it, so you can use an iPhone or an Android phone. You can use the Blue Nami decoder and then just a battery and that reed switch I mentioned earlier. It's just a tiny circuit board. It costs about $18. I've seen them for sale online, and you put a little magnetic reed switch in the locomotive, like under the coal pile, or I have mine at the back of the locomotive. Just one caveat to that. If you do have magnets to uncouple your cars, make sure the little reed switch is not too low in the tender, because I couldn't understand why my locos were stalling all the time and thinking, what the heck's going on here? And it was the locomotive running over the magnet under the track, which would shut the locomotive off.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
That
I
was
have a
not
question.
a good thing. Yo,
It's Pat Rivard here. Uh, do you use track power to charge them batteries once they ever run on that system?
who you asking, Pat? Keith? Are you asking Keith?
Either
No.
one of you.
I don't. I have
Oh.
a separate charge port because mine system doesn't allow for that.
But I have heard a lot of people use that system. I just wondered if you had
No, you can-
experienced it.
The Stanton system works like that. You
Okay.
charge through the wheels.
Yeah.
No, I have to charge my loco separately. All mine have a separate port on them, which I
Yeah.
in the water hatch. I
Yep.
flip the water hatch up and I stick the plug in.
Keith, are you 2.4?
Yes,
Okay.
2.4 gigs.
Stanton is not 2.4, it's at 9 something, 86
Right.
or something.
Right.
My-
My system has 16 individual frequencies that I can set as well. I mean, as I said, we're talking about a different price point here for what I'm using. I went overboard when I bought it because, I mean, you know, I've been in this hobby all my life, and I thought, you know, I'm 74 years old now, and it's time to have something that will last me until I go to the big model railroad in the sky.
Well, I just, you know, it's a great way to control your locomotive. I try to tell people that, hey, all of a sudden you have to give a little more power to go up the hill.
Yeah.
And once you reach that crest, you have to back off,
Right.
just like the real engineer would have to do.
Sure.
It's the most prototypical operation you can get.
Well, in my case, of course, I'm using Tsunami, so I've got the digital system with a dynamic control. So it's like cruise control, right? But
Yeah.
I've actually backed that off. I've set the parameters of the DCC decoder so that it's very sensitive to the load. So my
Yeah.
engine's up hard. I have a small grade on my layout. My layout's in a 42 by 12 foot room. Anyway, if anybody wants to look at my layout, you can go on YouTube and look at it. I've got a whole lot of videos of it. You can see all my locos are battery powered. You can see them running around the layout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm-
I don't know. I feel like I'm blowing my trumpet here. So you guys, I'm sorry.
I knew you were into battery, and I actually looked for you last week to get your input, but I'm trying to, again, show
Mhm.
people what we can do with basic charge. If you
Okay.
like it, if you don't, you've only spent a minimal amount of money
Great. Yeah.
and a minimal amount of time,
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, two wires to the motor, 2 wires to the battery, and you're moving.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Mine again, as I say, there's 2 wires coming out of the radio receiver board, which is called they call it a converter, CONVOTRR or something. Anyway, RTR, RTR. But it's a play on words, converter, ready to run. So, but again, as I say, you're looking at spending quite a lot of money on the system I have.
Yeah.
Going back to Jim's point about running streetcars, I think the system that you're talking about is great because basically streetcars don't need a whole lot of sound. They're pretty quiet. And, you know, you don't need diesel sounds or steam locomotive sounds. So a simple system with a silent decoder would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see that, and that's why I never went to DCC, because I've got sound on my layout, but
Okay.
my sound is sound pieces in my cities or along the track. And I've got switches so that when one of the trolleys goes by, the cows will move or you know, whatever the sounds are.
Yeah.
So I've never really thought about putting sounds in the trolley because a bell here and there, or, you know, the
Bell in the
minor
bell in the compressor and the winding motor.
you know, it just didn't make sense to me. So from my standpoint, and I, you know, I don't know about, you know, a switching layout and so forth. The people that contacted me, what started all this is they are so confused about what battery do I have to use. They don't understand the battery size that they need for whatever their operation is.
Yeah,
And what I'm hoping Steve is going to be able to do is maybe start with something simple. You know, this is an HO switch engine that weighs this much and is going to pull maybe 2 cars, and that's the weight that we're talking about. And this $25 or $15, you know, this doesn't have any sound. You won't get all the bells and whistles, but it will move your diesel and these 2 cars from point A to point B on a battery power. And this is how the battery power works. And this is what you got to be careful of. Now, if you want to go from that step up higher with battery power, then you got to do this and this and this and this. And because so many people are confused because they've heard people say, this is what I have in battery power, and it sounds like we're talking about thousands of dollars to convert to battery power. So it's something that they throw their hands up with and say, yeah, I'm out of there. You know, they just stop listening, and that's what we're trying to get away from.
Oh, totally. I agree with you. One of the things I will tell you, I've got 9 locomotives on my layout. 2 of them are galloping geese, and the rest are steamers. And yeah, I mean, I've got a fair amount of money invested in it, but I went piecemeal, bit by bit, 1 locomotive at a time, or 2 locomotives at a time. I didn't go out and buy enough to do 9 locomotives at $300 a pop. You know what I mean? I don't want to drop $2,700 on all this stuff to start off with. But when I moved to the house I'm living in now, I started a brand new layout, which is the one I mentioned on YouTube there. And I didn't want to crawl around under the layout and do track wiring. And most of all, I did not want to deal with dead shorts. I didn't want to deal with polarity of frogs. I didn't want to deal with turnouts. All this stuff goes away. You don't have it. All I have under my layout are the tortoise switch machines, and I have 2 wires running around the layout, which is a power bus. And then I just have double pole, double throw switches mounted in my fascia. So my entire layout is wired like that. But you never have to clean the track. My turntables they turn electrically, but there's no wiring to them. And I've actually got a locomotive that I've built from a kit called a Garrett, which is
that's beautiful.
and in fact, I think I put that on. I'm not sure. It might be on YouTube. But anyway, the point I wanted to make here is I converted that from ON. It was originally a British 14 millimeter gauge kit. I converted it to ON3. I bought fine scale wheels, but I soldered the wheels onto the axles, so it's a dead short. If you put that on a regular layout, it would short the layout out. I'm going to bring that to the convention next year, Steve, in Pittsburgh.
I want to see that. That thing's beautiful. I've seen it run on track. And of course, Garrett.
I grew up in South Africa, so I grew up around those Garretts. But anyway, look, I'm segueing away from your point here. Steve, you talk, I'll shut up, okay?
I'd like to listen to you. You know,
thank you.
One of the things that in the old days of model railroading, when they reviewed an engine, they would tell you what the stall voltage was.
Yes.
If you remember that in model railroad, and so you knew. Now, of course, you know, I guess you don't know unless you find out for yourself. But one of those diesels that I bought actually has on the instructions 1/3 of an amp is what it draws.
Can I just say one quick thing? It's not stall voltage, it's stall current. You see,
Current, yeah.
current is the amount of energy drawn, and voltage is the amount of pressure. Okay, that people get confused by that. It's stall current. Yeah.
I misread that. It said amp, so.
I'm not trying to be a smart ass here. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to
No, no,
make it clear.
No. Yeah, so that's,
no, from my standpoint, my motivation is I don't want to have to clean the track.
You don't, never, ever. I've never cleaned my track.
You know, that's why battery power has appealed to me. Because right now I pull power not from my track, but also from my overhead wire.
Yeah,
So I'm tired of cleaning all that stuff. So I thought somebody said, well, with battery power, you don't have that problem. So
right.
if battery power is a reasonable alternative for me, then it makes all the sense in the world because I've eliminated track cleaning and
Right
wire
on. I just want to say something. I've got a friend sitting next to me here visiting me from South Africa who is an avid model railroader. And
Oh.
he and I, his name's John Everett. Tomorrow we are going to visit a trolley layout in Canada that the fellow that built it, it's an O-scale trolley layout. And it's a pretty large layout. Anyway, he is having endless problems with dirty pole, dirty track. And I said to him, you know what? I can fix all this for you. And I'm Steve, I'm going to tell him all about what you have just said here, because this is the way he needs to go.
yeah, at least try one.
Yeah.
I mean, right now they're $26. I don't know if they charge postage to
Right.
Canada,
Right.
but on eBay, and hey,
I offered to put a silent decoder in one of his locomotives and a battery system, but I didn't want him to have to go out and buy throttles and all that kind of stuff. So I think what you're showing here is his solution. His name's Tom. I think it's Tom's solution, definitely.
well,
Does Tom run DC or DCC?
DCC. He's got
DC.
excuse me, he's got an NCE system.
Okay.
And he's picking up power off the overhead and off the track. And
Yeah.
it's either on or off, like the trolleys are going around the layout at 100 miles an hour because he can't keep the track clean,
oh,
and it's horrible. I've tried to be nice to him, but also had to be blunt with him. I said, come on, let's get the batteries in here and get this lot running. So your
Yeah.
solution, Steve, is the way I think he should go.
well, you need to also remember, not you, but people who are interested in this, you have to disengage the track pickups.
Oh
From the
yeah,
wheel.
absolutely, sure. Yeah,
Can't have that.
no,
No more. It's done. Your
Yeah.
power is to the motor. You are controlling the motor.
that's right.
Controlling anything off the rail.
Isolate the motor completely, yeah, sure. But that's the same with my system. Anyway,
Yeah.
I've talked enough, guys. Sorry.
Well, thank you for your input, Keith.
You're most welcome, Steve.
Anytime, man, anytime.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, listen, I think, Steve, we'll look forward to next week and continuing this discussion.
One more thing.
All right?
I will be doing a Owen 30 mogul with Loco-Fi. And I'll be reviewing that and so you'll see if it works. And I'll tell you what I think of the system. And I'll show you run it. We'll run it and we'll be able to hear the sound. So we'll get a good idea with the product. I will say one thing. The person who's going to give the talk next week is the creator of it, and he is very knowledgeable and will answer any question either by mail or by phone almost immediately. So they're very customer service oriented. That's it.
Can I say one last thing here? I noticed a question from Rich Randall to everyone about balance charging. Can it charge multiple batteries? My system uses 3 batteries connected into one system because my batteries are 11.1 volts.
Right.
So what I do is I charge the whole battery pack at once. So yes, it can charge more than one battery, but you can also use it as a balance charger. There's a
Right.
setup for that. So I hope that answers your question, Rich.
Keith, because your battery is actually a single cell that you lashed together to make the 11.1, you don't have to balance it, but it
No.
does show when you balance it's 3 cells, doesn't it?
Correct.
Yes,
I charge my system, the charger's smart enough to know. And
Yeah.
if you reverse the charge plug on the battery, like if you plug the plug into the battery backwards, it just tells you, it beeps like crazy.
yeah,
But-
oh, yeah,
But the other thing is, if you connect the battery to the radio receiver backwards in my system, you're $150 down the drain
Mhm.
instantly. It's instant poof.
but it doesn't even smoke, that's the thing.
No smoke. It doesn't even give you a chance to let the magic smoke out. It's instant poof.
Let me ask you guys one other question now, all right? I have handheld controllers that I
Uh-huh.
make. They have a rheostat in them and a diode, because each one of my trolleys are controlled through a diode. So if I get this car kit and I use that battery, all I've got to do is disconnect the wire to my trolley pole, because I pull power there, and disconnect the wire that goes to the track and attach the two wires to the car battery, and I can still use my same handheld controller and everything else, and I'm on battery power. Is that right?
No,
Oh.
I don't believe so, no. Watch next week and we'll show you. Bob Gelmacher is gonna, show you one of these, how to do it.
Okay,
Now, you've already got a box. You've got a rheostat, and you probably have a directional switch. Right?
Yeah.
You make it forward, back.
yeah, I've got, yeah, forward and reverse.
You've got the components. Now, you're gonna have to put a light that flickers to show when when you're bound to that particular receiver. Once that circuit is complete, you'll get a solid light. So in other words, if I show you this, you see how that is flashing? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now. If I,
Oh, you froze up, Steve. Not good. Hello?
This is probably a stupid question, but what do I need the light for?
There's something going on here.
I think, Steve, I think it's frozen up.
Yeah, he has. The light is merely to tell you that the system's on and it's functioning. It's sending out a signal. It's just a
I got
positive.
you. I
Yeah.
got you. Okay. But I get the same results if I just turn my throttle on and the trolley moves, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, what do I need the light for?
Well,
Because
that's kinda
I
nice.
keep my things as simple as possible.
Well, I modified my Tsunami settings as well, so that the locomotive engineers have to use the brake when they run the locomotive. If you
Yeah.
don't, you can open the throttle, and if you don't apply the brake, it won't stop. It'll just keep drifting. But that's again going over the top for something else. It's nothing to do with battery power, but it's just the way I've configured my throttles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, the light just tells you that there's something going on.
Well, listen, let's continue this discussion next week then with when Steve gets back to us, because I think he's frozen up and gone for the evening.